So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much, David, Bruno, for this invitation to present today my work as part of your seminar. So as Bruno introduced, I'm a CNRS researcher with a laboratory based in Bordeaux, Passages, and associate researcher with the Laboratoire des sciences de l'information et de la communication at Paris 13. And my presentation today, Amazon as a Digital Empire, will more particularly focus on this well-known big tech, US big tech, that all of you, I'm sure, know already. But what you may be less familiar with, it's its expansion strategy and policy of expansion in different global south countries. And I will more particularly discuss the case of expansion in India since an arrival in 2013. The collaborative processes also involved in this localization strategy, the power relation at stake between the different players, and also the limit of what we can call a digital empire. So I will start with a few words of introduction and more particularly on the background of this research. In short, I started my research on India in 2008 when I was doing my master degree. I did then my PhD from 2010 to 2015 at Paris Diderot University, so just next door, and in co-supervision with Jawaharlal Nehru University in New Delhi. And it was on the geography of contemporary art market in India. And after that, so we were in the 2015-16, it was the time when players like Spotify, Netflix, Amazon were starting to have this global expansion. And I furthered my researches in India on more particularly the digitization of the cultural industries at large, and trying to understand the socio-economic transformations that were at stake with the arrival of those new powerful players from the digital industry. And so, as part of this research, we started this program with my colleague Philippe Bouquillon, Cultural Industries in India, Digital Platform and Regulation. And that is still going on. As of now. And in 2013, I started to coordinate a program, an international research network, more particularly, called South Stream, and that aimed to lead a collective and critical reflection on cultural platforms, digital players, and policies in the global south. We are a team of about 50 researchers with 9 institutional partners in Europe, Middle East, Latin America, and Asia. And this is a 5-year program funded by CNRS and LabSIC. So this is the different field of research I'm currently involved in, and how from this I arrived to Amazon. So as I mentioned, a part of my research since the years 2016 were more particularly the arrival of those powerful digital players in the Indian societies and the different socio-economic reconfiguration they were triggering, particularly in the field of the cultural industries. I did researches on the music industry, video, industry, as well as craft sector. And so that's how, as part of these researches, certain players were outlined, such as Amazon, because precisely there is the Amazon Prime Video service, the Amazon Prime Music, and looking a bit further in the organization of this player, that's when I arrived to Amazon Web Service, which is a very important aspect today of the economy of Amazon. And as part of a research program, I started more precisely this case study on Amazon. So the program was called Digitization and Society in Asia and Africa. It was coordinated by Marine Aldada and Mathieu Kay from 2019 to 2023. And one of the central themes of this program was also to study the link between digital technology and forms of imperialism, both old and new. And also to emphasize the fact that the deployment of those digital technologies were inscribed in long history of powerful relationships between science, technology, and states. So more broadly, this research and the contribution of Amazon case study aim to contribute to broader ongoing researches on the deployment of major information and communication technology players in the Global South and their consequences on socio-economic transformation. To some extent, we could summarize the research question behind the article that you received as follows. To what extent does Amazon's trajectory shows continuity and renewal in the dynamic of industrial globalization and the domination of major players in the communication industry? My methodology to answer this question will be mainly a qualitative approach. So based on document analysis, reports from the industrial players, as well as a document produced by the government, third party, or press article, as well as material collected. It's okay, don't worry. During the fieldwork in India, mainly from 2019 to last year, basically. And so here is the outline of this presentation. I will start by coming back on the shaping of a critical approach of big tech for my case study. Then I will arrive more precisely to Amazon's deployment in India and its hegemony in several industrial sectors. And the third part of this presentation will look beyond the hegemony, the local alliances, and the new challenges of India's digital sovereignty. So, let's start with this shaping of a critical framework to approach big tech study. So, since the late 1990s, there've been a growing critical literature coming mainly from political economy of communication and the sociology of ICTs that has been highlighting this growing influence of the major private players in information and communication in the organization of contemporary society. Among the various aspects this literature highlighted, its positioning was to defend the idea that those platforms that we're using in our everyday life are not neutral intermediaries. They are not simple tools as the industry discourse would like to make us believe. They are very much shaped by market forces, certain players' interest, as well as power relation operating at different scales. So through digital platforms, we observe, and the literature has been analyzing the reorganization of market, of different markets, of labor as well organization, and an increasing financialization of the economy, both in global north and global south. As part of this analysis, the idea of the imperialist dimension of the technology, or the fact that we can consider major communication company as empire, is not really new. It's not something that arrived with Amazon. On the contrary, since the late 1970s, we can see that important landmark in the literature has been precisely analyzing those articulations. The work by Herbert Schiller, Mass Communication and the American Empire, the works also of Armand Matlar on modern communication technology and the new facets of cultural imperialism, and more recently the work of Winsek and Pike, including their recent book Communication and Empire, Media Markets, Power and Globalization, 1660-1910. This book is particularly interesting because they come back on the way already at the end of the 19th century. The world communication system was largely managed, organized, driven by what the authors called cables, monopoly, and cartels, cutting deeply across national lines. Their work also emphasized certain characteristics that you will see will echo the observation we can make today in the expansion of players like Amazon. They highlighted already how in the 19th century those different communication players were tying strategic alliances with state-owned telecommunication operator and different state agent, as well as the way the technological innovation they were offering was resonating strongly with the modernization rhetoric of certain local elite. What happened with the arrival of the big tech or the GAFAM is that they are reviving this the debates that were already there in the second half of the 20th century. And it's important in this critical approach to continue studying digital infrastructures and approach in relation with these former imperialist structures, as highlight Aurag and Chakravarti in their work. So, as part of this attempt to better analyze the deployment of big tech and GAFAM, there have been different notions that have been built, especially over the past 10 years. Among them, I've selected a few of them that were important in the literature that I've been using. So, Yongjing have been more particularly using the term of platform imperialism to describe new type of asymmetric relationships and of interdependences fostered by the rise of platform. He mainly emphasized in those work of 2013 those interdependences between the West, mainly US, and what he called the developing countries. A body of work from the 2018-19 onward will prefer to use the term of colonialism instead of imperialism in their work. And among the research that have been particularly highlighting this term, there is the work of Nick Couldry and Ulis Mejías, in their book that you may know, The Cost of Connection, How Data is Colonizing Human Life. And I'm trying to find the second part of the title, Appropriating It for Capitalism. In this book, the term of colonialism was more particularly focusing on data. So their analysis was focusing on processes of data extraction, harvesting, and exploitation to generate value for the technology industry. And the power relationship linked to the data capture processes. Another term started to be much more used, which is the one of digital colonialism. And Michael Quitt was among the first one to use it, with this time a more broader approach beyond just the data. He was here talking about the entire architecture of the digital system. So talking about the control exercised by a few multinational, especially American multinational, over the hardware. So we're talking about the data center, the hardware infrastructure, the software, as well as the network. And I've been hiding here this little logo, Tech Empire. This is actually the logo of one of his podcasts, that very interesting podcast that he has been doing now for a few years, and that I recommend to listen to get more into this thematic. So among the other research that I've been more particularly looking at those aspects and looking at big tech through this approach, I wanted to quote the work of Toxdele Oyedemi, who more particularly has been focusing on the political economy of other GAFAM that I will not go into detail here. So just for reminder, GAFAM stands for the Google, Amazon, Facebook, Apple, Microsoft, and they are also called the big tech or the big five, depending on the literature. But so Facebook and Google are part of those GAFAMs, and Oyedemi more particularly define what he called digital colonialism and its manifestation in three ways through the analysis of Facebook and Google. He highlighted what he called a pattern of exploitation, which is go into the exploitation of different natural resources, human resources, and with the digital aspect, the also extraction and analysis of human behavioral traces that are left on the digital space, with the potential of control and surveillance associated to these practices. The second aspect he highlighted is the colonization of communication space. Here we are going back to what Michael Quitt was analyzing, is the way a few technology corporations are installing and then controlling the infrastructures, leading to a situation where a few players dominate the digital structure in other countries. And finally, the spatial expansion of those technology corporations with an expansion which can be found both in terms of territorial expansion as well as material expansion, and a global reach of those companies that go through increasing share of markets they are appropriating, and an increasing number of users they are able to reach through their strategies. So we have this broad overview on the shaping of this literature. It was also important to come back on one aspect that with my colleague we highlighted in our book, Digital Platform and the Global South, that we published last year. In this book, my colleague Philippe Bouquillon points out that if the research that examines the role of this platform from the angle of imperialism or colonial activities bring this critical approach, they tend also to reinforce the common idea of the overpowering nature of those players. And this is also important to keep in mind, that the modalities and the extent of this domination are only partially documented. And so it's important when it comes to their activity to go into more detail into the modalities under which those powers are exercised. So we need to understand those modalities or domination not only by understanding the global structures in which those platforms operate, by analyzing the logics of power linked to their socio-economic and technical characteristic, but also by taking into account the political, the economic, the social, and the cultural context that favor or constrain their expansion in different countries. And understanding how the platform have to negotiate also with different local context is particularly important. It's not in a perspective of relativizing the power of global digital platform, but rather to better understand how they negotiate and exercise their power. So I will move to the second part, focusing on Amazon's deployment in India and the different sectors in which it will expand its activity. So you may all know how Amazon started its activity back in the 1990s. It was selling a book online. And this is how we moved from the activity of online sales of books to many other products that were started to be integrated into its economy, film, music, and other. And it was also an activity that started to be deployed in a worldwide perspective quite rapidly. Amazon strengthens as well its international activity by making major investment at a global scale, particularly in the construction of logistic centers outside of the US. So this different sales activity were increasingly developing, but the most significant change happened in 2006 when Amazon started to foray into the sector of technology services with the creation of Amazon Web Service. The company has been developing through Amazon Web Service a diversity of services for storage of data, analyzing content, and today, in 2020, not today, but a few years ago, to give an idea of the importance of this aspect of the activity in the company overall strategy, Amazon Web Service accounted for 74% of Amazon's profit. So it's a very less known, I mean, if you're yourself using Amazon to order your product, it's probably an aspect you don't know much about. But today, it's really the powerhouse behind the company. And associated with this activity, more steps were taken after the launch of Amazon Web Services. So to attract more particularly and to partner with different players from the public sector, a specific branch within Amazon Web Service was created specifically dedicated to the public sector in 2010. And it was aimed at government and public institutions to, I quote the company, support administrations, local authorities, and state operators in the implementation of infrastructures, enabling them to successfully complete their digital transformation. So, in that sense, Jeff Bezos is not only the founder of a powerful e-commerce company, but it is also, today's heading, one of the biggest venture to wire the world, if we take back the vocabulary of Winsec and Pike, except that now it's not anymore with cables and telegrams, but it's with data centers and cloud technology. So in 2019, again, to give an idea of already how powerful Amazon Web Service had become, it was becoming the first providers of public cloud infrastructure at almost 50%, followed by Microsoft, Alibaba, Google, and IBM. But we could see who were far behind Amazon. So states and federal agencies, in that sense, have become important customer of Amazon in that sense. And there were also, at this time, a lock-in strategy that make it quite difficult then to move from Amazon Web Service as a cloud and technological service providers to another company. And this kind of lock-in strategy was also starting to raise concern and on the potential influence that Amazon could exert on public policy. So for instance, in their recent book, Courmont and Le Gallès denounced the incursion of these firms into public action, which leads also to an acceleration in processes of privatization of public services. So those links between public and private partnership and those kind of alliances have been the object of increasing also concerns and research. So after this general background on Amazon at a global scale, I come to the case more specifically of India, where Amazon arrived, as I mentioned, and launched its e-commerce activities in 2013. The e-commerce companies here again expanded rapidly into other activities in Prime Video, Prime Music, and here again, soon after was launched the Indian subsidiary of Amazon Web Service in India, 2017. And 2 years later, the first Amazon Public Sector Summit in New Delhi was started and launched. So Amazon arrived in India at a time when the country was looking also to attract major investment from foreign players as part of its vast project of Digital India that was a government mission started in 2015. As part of this mission, the government aimed to transform India into a digital society and a knowledge-based economy. So a player like Amazon and other big tech took advantage from this increasing demand into digital services and data storage infrastructure to develop its cloud offering for both public and private companies in India. To just give one example among many, Amazon Web Service partnered with the Indian Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs in the creation of an Indian urban observatory for the different projects of smart cities that were at this time also launched in India, and which slogan was "Where data drives decisions." So highlighting the weight increasingly of data to accompany public decision processes. It's also important to put this in perspective with the fact that around the years 2015-18, India appeared a bit as a laboratory of experimentation for many of those big tech. It was a vast market that had huge perspective of growth. The second market after China in number of users, but a much more open economically, of course, market. To give an idea in terms of figures, in 2018, only 35% of the population was connected to internet. That was approximately 500 million users, but which was the size of the European market at the same time that was connected up to almost 85%. So in terms of size, it was a very interesting, promising market with still little regulation and very high number of opportunities. We will see, of course, that there are more complications coming, but that was the situation, let's say, 10 years ago. So today, there are 7 offices of Amazon in India, mainly located in the big cities, and I would say in the most economically powerful states of India. And they've been, in order to dominate, to expand of this market, a strategy which is quite characteristic of such company, a strategy of diversification of the activity as well as aggregation of users' data, which is an essential aspect to build economy in digital capitalism. So among this, I will quote a few examples of those new aspects in which Amazon will try to make a foray and try to enter existing market with more or less success, but it was part of its strategy and it could afford to make those experiments because of its financial power. So in 2016, for example, Amazon launched a seller lending network, which is very interesting because it was an important foray of a digital player into the sector of lending, which is financial services that was so far more into the bunch of activity related to banking. It also started Amazon Pay in 2021, and here we're talking about another segment in payment where Amazon was trying to settle. And another example I wanted to mention was Amazon Food, when Amazon tried to start its own food delivery activities. The market at this time was dominated by a duopoly of two Indian companies, Swiggy and Zomato. And Amazon arrived quite confident on this food delivery experiment. It had the financial resources because of its e-commerce experiment, and since already a few years, it has also the logistical experience, but in the end, it really didn't work out, and Amazon Food Service was shut down at the end of 2022. So not only success, despite being a powerful technological and financial player. A few figures on its investment. I'm always a bit careful using those figures because we know they're declarative by the company, but I feel they are still interesting to understand, first of all, the investment made in the country according to Amazon, but also the different sectors in which those investments are going to evolve. So Amazon declared to have invested $6.5 billion between 2013 and 2023. In 2020, the company announced investing an additional $1 billion in the digitization of small and medium businesses enterprises, and I will come back on the case of digital cameras in the next part. But this is an interesting move because we see the evolution from a strategy that was first mainly focused on the big company, mainly located in urban center and public partner, toward what we can say the next big market to come. You remember there is still 50% of the population which is not connected to internet. So there is this idea of moving toward this next big segment to digitize, and which is the small, medium enterprises and the not yet connected territories. And finally, another interesting announcement, which was made in 2023, Amazon Cloud Computing Unit announced $13 billion investment in India. So this time focusing on cloud computing. So we can see how the segment of digital services is really becoming the priority here for the future of the company in the country. I wanted to come back on two sectors where Amazon more particularly was able to achieve this hegemonic position, the e-commerce sector and the cloud sector that I briefly introduced, but I wanted to come back on it into more details. So for the e-commerce, yes, Amazon had a main competitor in India, which is Flipkart, another US owned company owned by Walmart. The two are competing, but Amazon is a bit beyond in terms of numbers of sellers who have registered on the platform. According to recent press article, there would be for Amazon around 700,000 sellers compared to 400,000 for Flipkart. And Amazon also enjoy a position of aggregator that enable to link its e-commerce offer with many other services associated to its other sectors of activities. What is interesting, and here, this is precisely the turn I also wanted to highlight. It's the fact that we start to see several actions taken by the government to attempt to limit slightly this duopoly situation. So, for instance, in 2019, there's been a change in the policy for FDI, for indirect investment, at a time when also an Indian company, a powerful one, was started also to make its entry into this e-commerce market. So this was the entry of a Reliance company, and there were also other local startups that were trying to enter this sector. So at this time, we started to see a shift from relying mainly on FDI to trying to rethink of a policy that would better enable local players to take off on this market. 2022 e-commerce bill aimed at reducing market distortion and preventing the creation of digital monopolies. So a first attempt where we see that we are at a point of potential transformation in the sort of not unlimited power, but great power that have the company, with more regulation coming to limit this situation. In a different way, but in the same perspective, we're going to see how it's happened for the cloud sector. So Amazon had its cloud services starting in 2017 in India. It was the first foreign providers of cloud approved by the Indian government in 2017. It was soon followed by another player who arrived on the market. You can see here the logo of Microsoft for its cloud service Azure. And the two companies have been, at some point, some of the main players on the market. But more recently, Microsoft made a smart move associating with, here it come back, the important Indian company Reliance with its cloud offer, Jio Cloud. So from an American duopoly, there's been this new reorganization of the market with Microsoft associating with Jio Cloud to try to balance the power of Amazon Web Service. And again, in this competition, there've been also evolution in terms of regulation and policy. So since 2019, the question of digital sovereignty and data localization have been becoming increasingly important in public discourse. This also coincides with a discourse and a practice that aim to increasingly use citizens' data for national economic purposes. So among some of those actions taken here again in 2022, a circular on data location from the Reserve Bank of India provides for storage of data linked to payment system on server located in India. Slowly across different sectors, this question of localizing the data in India is going to emerge and settle. And in 2023, India enacted the Digital Personal Data Protection Act, mandating that organizations store critical data within Indian geographical boundaries. So we see with those different actions an increasing concern for digital sovereignty as well as relocating data within the country. So this context also showed that more broadly, Amazon was able to achieve its position by taking control of key infrastructures. It was at the beginning very eager to contribute to the development of the different infrastructure, both the hardware and the software. But today there are limits also which are posed to this hegemony, and a new generation of Indian operators, notably Reliance Jio, Reliance, is really an emerging important national digital champion and competitors for the US big tech. There are also increasing attempts from the government to regulate e-commerce and to also, as I mentioned, emphasize digital sovereignty, and we could even further the discussion with AI sovereignty, which is becoming the next big topic. In the last part, I will go a little bit more into the meso and micro level. So here we had some broad analysis based on a large document, industry report review. Now I will go also a little bit closer to examples that are also taken from fieldwork analysis. So in this final section, I wanted to examine the form of partnership, enrollment, and interdependencies with a variety of Indian industrial players and public partners. With one aspect that I wanted to highlight in the examples that I will be discussing, a shift from what we can call the traditional recruitment of local employees with fixed employment contract and salaries to a combination of this type of former recruitment and a process of enlistment, enrollment of local players, and especially those small independent entrepreneurs, those small and medium businesses. I will take the example of 3 programs, the digital Kendras, so toward the small shops, the Karigar program, which is more particularly targeting craftsmen, and the I Have a Space program that is dedicated to last miles customer. So starting with the digital Kendra, the aim of this program was, I'm quoting the company, to help local shop and small businesses to become digital entrepreneurs. So associated with this services, they were offering to shops, Amazons provide them with application to manage the inventory of goods in their shop. They also offer system of QR codes to enable consumer to access all the product available in the shop, and in certain cases benefits also from discount. So this was one of the important investments made by Amazon to try to contribute to digitization of small businesses. And as part of this strategy, and in a quite, I would say, usual business strategy, it has been acquiring local startups that were already working on those digital solutions for small shops. So Amazon acquired the Indian startup Purple, that was a Bangalore-based startup that was at this time specialized into automating inventories, purchase order, and invoicing. So it also could better grab the specificities of the logic of an Indian startup that would very well know the ecosystem in which they were trying to expand. The case study on which I wanted to spend a little more time is the one that was called Kalahat when it started, and that has been renamed Karigar, and which is the Amazon service specifically for artisans and craftsmen. So you see here one of the campaign of Amazon from an artisan in Bruges to an artist of the nation. So with this idea that Amazon will enable small artisans from rural area to get into the global digital economy. So that's the power of Amazon. And I let you also, and so that was the objective, to enable craft people to benefit from e-commerce and develop their activity. And I also let you enjoy this particular campaign design, where you will appreciate the revolutionary vocabulary used, which is very interesting when we know how Amazon has been keen on unionized among its worker force. To go a little bit more into detail in this program, it's, I think, a very good example on how Amazon, despite having technological power, economic power, and all kind of memorandum of understanding signed with powerful national, regional, local agencies, why it was still difficult to localize its activity and unable to adapt to the case of craft activity is particularly illustrative of a largely informal system. And this more broadly brings the question of digitization of this informal economy and the extreme difficulty also that are there on the ground. So when we're talking about the sector of craft production, we're talking about usually small entrepreneurs who are rather living in a rural area with limited access to internet, in a high number of cases not having smartphones, having issue with digital literacies, but more significantly, it's more the logic of production of Amazon. It's the Amazon model, which is in great disconnection with the mode of organization and production that we can observe during the fieldwork. So to give a very pragmatic example, when you order something on Amazon, you're supposed to have a stock somewhere in a warehouse. So you click and you get your product. So now, how are those craftsmen really working? They cannot afford to advance the production of product if they're not sure that it will be bought by someone somewhere. So the way they can start the production is when they know there is a commission for sure. They receive the money, they can buy the raw material, and they can start producing the artwork, and then it will be shipped somewhere. But you know, we're in a rural area and it can take more time than expected to reach your consumer. So the sort of logistic organization of Amazon, having to click and receiving a product in 2 days, doesn't fit with this mode of production. And was really an obstacle, among other, for Amazon to enroll more craftsmen into the program. So once those observations were made, Amazon and Flipkart, the main competitor, were aware that there was probably a need to do more on-the-ground work. So here is an example of an onboarding program that they had with one of the local institutions. So I was doing my fieldwork in Tamil Nadu at this time, and at the Tamil Nadu Corporation for Development of Women, there was a day that was dedicated to training and onboarding craftsmen for the e-commerce. So basically the head of the state of Tamil Nadu for this corporation were called for this meeting, and what both the representative for Amazon and Flipkart offer, they each had all of the day to present their program. And it was very pragmatic information on how, with your ID, how with your information, you can start to be on the platform, sell your product, and the different kind of offer Amazon is providing to help you to boost your business. They were also coming with material to click picture because they were helping you at the beginning to build your catalog of product. And so this was very attractive for craftsmen who were also in need or finding new distribution on the market, especially after the COVID time. That was a very complicated time for those craftsmen and entrepreneurs. So there was also a demand to and an interest into the solution that were offered here. However, what we realized quite easily is that once the product are on the website, it doesn't mean that they are going to sell. They are going to be in competition with so many other products. They're going to be in competition with similar product made in an industrial way. They're going to be in competition with product maybe made in China. So there is also a lot of scrutiny to have, deconstruction of also what the website can do and the very high limit. If at the beginning there is not the marketing skills and associated to market the product, it's going to be very difficult to remain competitive in this market. So here are, for instance, some of the services that I listed and Amazon was offering to the craftsmen. Easy shipping formula with packing and shipping by Amazon. Of course, that would be an extra charge. Or the fulfillment shipping, where they would take everything. If you don't know how to pack, to transport, to store, that will be entirely taken by Amazon for a monthly payment. And you would have a little logo, Amazon Fulfilled, that was benefit also the craftsmen, because they would appear higher in the selection of the product on the internet. So the more you pay at the beginning, the more chance you have to be high in the list of research. So all those elements make us look a little bit more carefully this idea of how the e-commerce services really help the craftsmen. What we've seen is that the old discourse of digital platform bypassing the traditional intermediaries, which was actually at the beginning the discourse, craftsmen are complaining about the high percentage taken by intermediaries to sell to a customer. So our e-commerce platform really enabling to bypass those traditional intermediaries. It looks like they are also a new layer that are also taking charges and also taking their percentage in the process. The promise also of integration into a global economy still need to be monitored. As through the interview, we could definitely see that the major revenue for those craftsmen were still coming from local buyers and buyers, let's say, from a more traditional business network. And finally, under the project of empowering these artisans, the strategy, I feel, is also to position itself on emerging markets, recently connected territories population, to collect new data on customers that can be monetized. In the end, for Amazon, the Karigar program is a good promotion that put Amazon as a perspective almost of the patron for small cultural producers. It doesn't really bring much money at all in terms of sales on the platform, but in terms of symbolic contribution, it's quite high, and it's probably the main benefits in this case. And this is possible because, again, the company is relying on so many sources of revenue that if this branch is not so financially interesting, they can be other sources and other interest. I will finish with this last example. I have a space, so the Amazon's last mile delivery program. So for this last program, it's an initiative where Amazon offered hundreds of stalls and local shops to be transformed into micro warehouses for Amazon. So basically, in areas where the traditional warehouses cannot reach the last consumer, they are offering small shops to be mini Amazon warehouses. Consumer can pick up their online order and also ask the shopkeeper to deliver it to their home directly. Interestingly, this program is presented as an opportunity to provide an additional income to the Kirana owners, and which allows Amazon to appear less as a competitor than a partner. And of course, you understand that the kind of product that people can order in the shop could be products that are precisely in the shop and could be bought directly to the local shop. But in its a very interesting way, Amazon managed to be presented rather as a partner here that complement the revenue of the shopkeeper. And it also very cleverly capitalized on the geographical and social position that occupy those local shops. In villages, they are very important social nodes for the local community. So two aspects, these initiatives are often welcomed by agents. Local agents who we can see in the discourse are very much interested and seduced by the platform promise of the economic progress, of the economic contribution, the new employment that can be created, in particularly in rural areas. However, what we also observed in the interview, and that was the case in the example I developed for the Tamil Nadu, the organization that, for instance, welcomed the onboarding workshop by Amazon and Flipkart are also very much aware of the possible dependence that it creates. And they are also on the side developing their own independent e-commerce initiative. They are trying to rely on other platforms, and they remain careful regarding how the free service offer at the beginning can lead into, of course, not so free related other offers. So this is an important aspect also to highlight the agency of the local players and a diversity of situation. And my two case studies were one in Tamil Nadu and the other in Assam, in northeast of India, depending on the local infrastructure existing, depending on the strength of the public infrastructure services. Amazon may or may not develop the same way, may not or not partner the same way with different players, depending on how much it can add to existing services or become the main local services. So on the one hand, yes, aspiration of regional players to a certain technological modernity that, of course, meet the ambition of the big tech at this time. But on the other hand, and I will hand off this, waves of resistance also, which are coming from different spaces in the society, from the independent sellers, from the retailers. Amazon has also, for the warehouses, a worker association that put a case in justice against the bad condition of work. And so there are also lots of discontent, like a bit everywhere in the world. And so it's maybe we're moving from a phase of great enthusiasm with also the economic digital opportunities that were promised to a more careful, resisting, or balancing approach also of this player. And I will finish with a few words of conclusion. So the idea of this presentation was to contribute to analyzing the way in which a major company in digital capitalism negotiate and exercise its power through different logic, a logic of territorial expansion, through its digital infrastructure, a logic of a geographical expansion from big city to the last mile zones, and also of capitalist expansion through its activity sector diversification. They are distinct but also intertwined logic of power, to refer here to what David Harvey has been very well describing. The second element of this presentation was also to question, is this power relation being reversed? At least they were being questioned, they were being put into question. And we tend to observe a turn in the public policy toward greater regulation and the assessment of the digital sovereignty. And I will finish with the idea of the future work I'm aiming to do on Amazon. So I'm really looking for more collaborations. There is lots of study on Google, Facebook. I must say that Amazon seems to be much less studied. And I think it's really an important player to keep in social science researches. But there are also methodological questions which are increasingly raised when you study such dominant and big player, how to investigate the big tech today, how to have access to precisely the study of those dependency relationships. There are clauses of confidentiality between the partner and Amazon itself. There is also the access and the protection of your sources. So many also methodological questions that I'm interested to discuss with other researchers who are interested in this investigations on big tech. So thank you very much, and I look forward to the discussion.